Java with Joe the podcast is brought to you by Kemba Credit Union, celebrating over 90 years of quality service to our membership. Sponsored in part by First Choice Coffee, the official coffee of Java with Joe, and Real Vision. And now your host, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Westchester Liberty Chamber Alliance, Joe Hinson.
Thank you. We're with Don Anderson Thurmond, Chief Operating Officer for the YWCA Hamilton. Welcome, Don.
Thank you for having me, Joe. It is great to meet you and great to be here today.
Well, great. So, Don, you grew up in Hamilton, attended both grade school and high school in Hamilton. Is that correct?
That is correct. I am a Hamiltonian proper, which is a term that I learned just recently in the last few years of being at the YWCA. I guess there are a few transplants, but I have grown up there and I worked there, and for a period of time I was raising my children and they were going to school there.
Very good. And growing up, a mentor of yours was your grandmother.
Yes. My grandmother, I have two of them. Both of them are individuals who have been, had played a huge part in who I am today, I'd like to think.
And I think one of the reasons for that is probably both of them, maybe one in particular was really you watched, and they were a very hard worker.
Yes, my paternal grandmother was an extremely hard worker, is what I would probably say. She, for a period of time in her life, not always, but a period of time, she worked at the Jim Beam Distillery from like 7 to 3 every day, and then in the evening she'd come home and work from 4 to 11 every night, a second job. And I often share with individuals that one time she received an award from Jim Beam, the distillery, and it was in recognition of 10 years of excellence because she'd never called off, she had never been late, and I remember looking at that as a teenager, and I thought, man, you've been working for 10 years, you've never been late to work? That is great. And then there was an instance where my grandfather had already retired at this time, but my grandmother was still working, and she was working 2 jobs. And she had a car accident on her way to work, and she was not late. She drove her car to work, and I remember my grandfather told me, she said, Willie, I need you to come and get this car. I done totaled it, but I'm at work. And I was like, oh my. Wow,
she wasn't going to miss work or be late, it sounds like. So
she wasn't going to be late, and she wasn't going to miss. So.
Oh, that's good. Well, very good. Well, along the way you've learned the importance of perseverance, obviously overcoming adversity, and that you realize really nothing is permanent. Talk a little bit about that, because obviously growing up, you had some things along the way that have really taught you some good life lessons.
I have had just challenges, even challenges in my community, and learning what it was to be a black girl or a black woman, even growing up in Hamilton. I was a cheerleader for Hamilton High School, and probably during some of those times that I was growing up, I experienced what I would say I wouldn't want anyone to experience while they were at a game and cheering basketball, and someone, calling you a name or making a racial slur in my presence, and what that meant, and probably even at the time, even some of my teachers, and I will say that I like my teachers, they were all good, but even some of the things that I know that they had said to me, even as I was growing up, at the time I was probably young and didn't recognize that maybe they weren't as encouraging or as empowering as I would have liked them to have been at that time. But when I look back at it, I was like, maybe they thought less of me and who I would become, and so they didn't necessarily provide me with the tools. But I had an amazing support system in my mom and my grandparents and my aunts and my cousins. And so they were always, there was no shortage of encouragement and individuals telling me that, you know, this might be a different direction for you to get to where you need to go, but we are more than confident that you possess the skills and the abilities to do so.
Very good. And so with those skills and that support that you've got, you went on and got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from the University of Cincinnati.
Yes, I did.
So why criminal justice?
So I distinctively remember when I was younger that, you know, and this is probably just a real simplified term, is that, you know, I could see good and bad in the world, and I always knew that I wanted to be on the side of those individuals who were working to do good. And for a long time, I was really passionate about what it meant to be involved in police science, and, you know, making sure that, you know, there were individuals like me that were seen in the community as helpers and someone that could be impactful to other youth. Oftentimes, I know that when I was growing up, I don't recall any African American women in law enforcement, and sometimes we saw them at schools if we had school dances or in the sheriff's department. And so I thought, you know, absolutely, I would want to do that, and I did. I enjoyed. I had some amazing professors. Professor Roger Wright from the University of Cincinnati, lots of individuals that I remember, and I enjoyed what I was learning. But I think after I graduated and I actually started entering into the workforce, I realized that I would be much more helpful on the other side. I wanted to really engage with individuals before they entered the criminal justice system, and if there were ways to be much more impactful. So.
Absolutely. And being impactful, you also are a licensed chemical dependency counselor and a behavioral health specialist, too.
Yes. So before working at YWCA, I worked for several community partners here locally in Hamilton, and I achieved behavioral health specialist certification while working there, and I also went on to complete licensed chemical dependency counseling to help individuals in the community.
Yes, and you have almost, 12 years experience advocating for individuals of domestic violence in Butler County.
I have a significant experience working with individuals with severe and persistent mental illness and who have also experienced domestic violence, but working with individuals who were domestic violence survivors was something exclusively I did at YWCA. Just individuals that I were working with in the community just as a byproduct of whatever was going on in their lives. They may also have had some domestic violence, but I achieved a significant awareness of what it meant to serve survivors and families and individuals fleeing violence much more closely and intimately at YWCA.
So, but you also work with both adults and juveniles, is that correct?
I did. Probably my very first, I guess, adult job or job that I can recall working full-time was with Juvenile Justice Center. And so, yes, I had an opportunity to work with juveniles in juvenile court for probably 9 years.
Yes, and so we've talked about the YWCA, it was Hamilton's where you're at, and I see it was founded in 1900 by Hamilton's first female physician.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Dr. Julia Goodman, and we are so thankful for her and her passion for serving women and children. And we are hoping that we are making her proud, her legacy for sure.
Absolutely. So tell us about YWCA in Hamilton today.
So YWCA, our mission at YWCA is to eliminate racism and promote peace, justice, dignity. for all individuals and also empower women and children. And we operate the only domestic violence shelter in all of Butler County. We also operate a permanent and supportive housing program that shelters individuals who have experienced severe and persistent mental illness and who also have a disability. So likely those individuals have been homeless for at least a year or more, or have had a significant multiple episodes over a number of years. And we also operate an empowerment and advocacy program where we are out in the community trying to promote peace, justice, dignity, and equity. And we start doing so with the youth within our schools and our communities. So we operate an after-school program, and we are also in some of the Hamilton City schools.
Yes, and so really the three areas, I think you've covered them, that you really focus on is the racial justice and advocacy, all right? Domestic violence, you talked about the shelter.
Yes.
And also permanent supportive housing. And so those three key areas there, is this something that has been ongoing before you got there, or is this something that, since you've been there, that you really focused in on?
So, Dr. Julia Goodman, as you mentioned, this has been some of the core areas, even racial justice and equity, many, many years ago when YWCA was established. And it has been the fundamental principles. And so, no, I did not establish any of those programs. They were all in place when I arrived, and I have just had an opportunity to invest and grow and learn and help continue to make sure those programs are being impactful for our community.
Very good. So you began your career at YWCA in Hamilton, October 2021. You were a director and obviously were promoted to chief operating officer in July of 2024. So what are the responsibilities of a chief operating officer at the YWCA in Hamilton?
So I think that YWCA Hamilton is a smaller organization. We probably have about 22 employees. So the chief operating officer probably holds many hats, and so I provide direct service to residents and/or survivors at some times. I often am working with our department heads, our directors, to ensure that our programs and operations are running smoothly, and I am always engaged in compliance, making sure that we are doing the things that we are saying we are supposed to do, making sure that our grants and our funders have all of the things that they have requested, and also just encouraging our team members from the frontline staff and to executive leadership, and making sure that individuals feel heard and that we are not just serving the residents and survivors, but we are also taking care of one another.
Sure. And you mentioned, obviously, your shelter a couple times. You've received statewide recognition for the performance of the shelter. Talk a little bit about that, because obviously it's been recognized throughout the state of Ohio for what you've been able to do.
Yeah, so the Ohio Domestic Violence Network is the umbrella for which our shelter operates. And so as part of the Ohio Domestic Violence Network, they have asked to come in and take a look at our shelter and, see what it is that we are doing and what is working well. The Ohio Domestic Violence Network has come into our facility to film and to provide some education. I have been asked to speak on panels with the Ohio Domestic Violence Network and participate in trainings with the Ohio Attorney General's office, such as our 2 days in May, where service providers come together and share education and information, and I have worked with them to do those things. And so I think that ODVN, or the Ohio Domestic Violence Network, is seen how our shelter operates, and they really value us as a high performer. Sure. And they have modeled some of the things that they are doing after what we do within our program, and so that has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've said YWCA Hamilton, but it's much more than Hamilton. It's Butler County. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And so if someone who's watching this and they think of YWCA, they're all different? There's none that are the same, or is all the other YWCAs focus on pretty much the same things?
So most of the YWCAs focus on the same things. We have YWCA USA that provides us our guidance and leaderships for what we will do at YWCA. Now, some YWCAs may have different programming, so some may have youth programming at their shelter. Some YWCAs may only accept individuals who are fleeing intimate partner violence. We are a very low barrier shelter, so we accept any individual whom is fleeing violence. And YWCA Hamilton is our agency, and there is also YWCA Cincinnati, there's YWCA yes. Dayton, but they may have different programming. They may operate slightly different, but we're not connected. We all run and function sure. independently. However, we do all take guidance from YWCA USA, so there will be like policies and items.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so with that said, you mentioned Cincinnati, Dayton. Is there a YWCA Warren County?
No, there is not. There is a YWCA in Cincinnati and a YWCA in Hamilton, but there is not a YWCA in Warren County. So they are generally in cities, and so it's not like a county. So there is not like a YWCA in Trenton or Lebanon or in certain areas of Middletown that might be in a different county. But.
So if somebody was in Mason, for example,
mm-hmm.
And they wanted the support that we're talking about today,
mm-hmm.
do they have their option to go to Cincinnati, go to Hamilton, go to Dayton? How does that work?
Absolutely. So if someone is interested in the services that we provide at YWCA Hamilton, and specifically shelter services or permanent and supportive housing, they absolutely can apply, or in terms of emergency shelter, YWCA Hamilton takes survivors from anywhere. So you can be in Cincinnati, you can be in Dayton, you can be in Columbus. We are not allowed to say you can't come here or because of our county. Our providers allow us to take survivors from anywhere, and it's anywhere across the United States, as a matter of fact. And so there are even some instances where we need to take an out-of-state survivor. It doesn't always happen, but generally, I mean, most of the individuals that we serve come from within our community. So probably 50% of the survivors that we serve are from Butler County area, and probably 50% of those are directly from Hamilton or Fairfield or Middletown proper. But the additional survivors that we are serving within our shelter can come from neighboring counties and cities and all across Ohio.
So we've talked again about the Cincinnati and Dayton. So how often does your location connect, because we kind of look at regional perspective here, mm-hmm. with the Cincinnati office or the Dayton office? I mean, are you working in conjunction for the entire region? Do you have conversations and amongst yourselves and making sure that you're providing a holistic opportunity for services in this area?
Absolutely. So we regularly meet and speak to our sister YWCAs, whether that's at quarterly meetings, whether that's at monthly meetings, and we have a great relationship with our sister YWCAs. So they support us, we support them. So oftentimes we are there. Sometimes they are coming to us for information. One instance is our shelter is fairly new. We started occupancy at the shelter at the end of 2022. And I know YWCA Cincinnati is currently in a renovation of their shelter, so they have come down and walked our shelter on numerous occasions, some with their builders and sometimes with them as an individual to see, you know, hey, what's working well, what might we consider differently. We frequently talk to one another about, you know, policies and procedures and how we can what's working and how we can make changes and what you experienced. So, and every year, all of the YWCAs come together nationally from across the entire United States, and we have education and sessions, and so we get to talk to our sister agencies pretty regularly, and especially the ones that are local. Yes.
Okay, so taking a step a little further here, why MCAs? Is there any connectivity to YMCA's and YWCA's? I understand men and women, but is there any connectivity between the two?
There is not any connectivity between the two. I would probably say that maybe a very long time ago when some of these organizations, they first came about, there may have been, but currently we are two very separate entities providing two different types of services. We are very much like-minded in that we are supports to our community and resources, and individuals can come, and there are even times where we are in the same room as YMCA doing some of the things or partnering, but we are two very different agencies that are providing two different services.
Okay. So tell us about your amazing complex. It's not new anymore, but both the apartments and obviously where you have your home office on Grand Boulevard in Hamilton.
Yes. It is, no, it's not brand new still, but it is still lovely. We really like it, and I think that survivors and residents who utilize the facility do as well. It is very different from our previous location, which is at 244 Dayton Street, and that was a lovely historic building in and of itself. And it's so interesting because as we were in the process of relocating and moving to that new building, all we could think about was, oh, you know, we got to get out of here. This doesn't have this, and you can't do this in there. And people would walk into that building and they would say, oh my gosh, this architecture is gorgeous. I love it. And there is so much character in that building. And so there are things that we absolutely miss, but our current facility is just so much better for the individuals that we are providing services to. It's just phenomenal. I mean, we are able to grow the amount of individuals and families that we can provide shelter by more than 50%, and we increased our permanent and supportive housing individuals by an additional 25%. We have much more dignified spaces in that there are no more shared facilities unless someone chooses to. Everybody has their own full-service kitchen and bathroom, and it is just so much better. We've got indoor, outdoor play areas that are located on our facility so that the children are able to play in a safe environment, and that facility is just phenomenal. I mean, it is a state-of-the-art playground, and our indoor facility, if you haven't seen it, it's a beach on one side and it is like a safari on another, and we took part in creating those trauma-informed spaces for the children and their families, and it's lovely. It's something. I must say so myself.
Yes, and that was a huge undertaking because what we're talking about here is not an existing building you moved into. You basically, it was new construction.
Yes, it was.
And to be able to get the funding for that, have a vision, and the vision to become reality, I mean, that was something that, I mean, a lot to be proud of, as you're alluding to. I'm sure that obviously the team is very appreciative of that, as well as the residents too. And I think City of Hamilton and Butler County, they have something of that nature, that structure that you were able to make from where you were before to what you're able to do today. Because especially in a tough economy, coming out of COVID, there was a lot of obstacles that you had to make that happen.
Absolutely. And I came in on the tail end of those things. So we had not, much of that footwork had been done prior till I was there. And our CEO, Wendy Waters Cannell, did an amazing job, and her vision definitely paid off into fruition. And it has been a blessing to all of our staff. And Wendy did not do that on her own. She worked with an amazing board. Dr. Benice Hamilton and Neil Cohen, and the COO at the time was April Hamlin, and I believe that they, in addition to the team that is working, some of them from the onset of that adventure, put in a tremendous amount of work, and the design and the compliance and all of the communication that it took to secure the funding for that. And a lot of that fell, especially for the shelter, was private donations and not specific or LIHTC funding or anything of that sort. So it was just a huge undertaking, and it is absolutely amazing. So
It is.
yes,
It
great
is.
job.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dawn, you have a special event coming up on Saturday, March the 8th at Spooky Nook. You want to talk about that?
Oh, we do. It is our inaugural Herstory and Heritage event, and this is our first ever event, but it will be a multicultural festival during the day. So from like 11 to 5, people can come, and we will have artisan food. We will have individual vendors who are providing unique services. We will have many of our community partners will be there. We will have a special area for the children that is going to be really exciting. We will have an amazing DJ. We will have special guests such as our local, I'd like to call them superstars, which is the Cunningham sisters, and Mark Cunningham, who is also a member of that family, will be our MC for the day. And I think most importantly, we will be honoring 10 women from our community, mostly present, but even some of the past, who include Dr. Julia Goodman, for all of their contributions that they have made to our community. And it will culminate with a lovely concert and with In Vogue, that is our largest fundraiser. And so we are very excited. Our Chief Development Officer, Sammy Brandenburg, has worked really, really hard to help within the last 6 months to bring all of this together. This Herstory and Heritage event has been 2 years in the making, so I have been present for most of that, while not the building of the building, but this. And we are expecting a huge turnout. We are just so excited about that. Our entire team is looking forward to the culmination of all of their hard work. And it will take place, you're right, on March the 8th at the Champion Mill Conference Center, also known as Spooky Nook, and we expect it to be huge and are excited.
Yes, so this is a regional event. So
Yes.
this will bring more than just Hamilton and Butler County. We're talking about the entire region.
Yes, we are. I have gotten a few calls already from individuals who saw some of the first Facebook post and information in the local news about In Vogue coming, and they are ready to purchase their tickets, and they're super excited, as we all are.
That's good. That's good. So let's talk about the future. Here you are, Chief Operating Officer. Been there in the role now in a short period of time. So what can we expect from the YWCA Hamilton and moving forward here in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think you should expect YWCA Hamilton to dig into our mission, which is empowerment of women and advocating for those individuals that need it most. I think that we are not into mission creep, but we will make sure that we are serving the most marginalized individuals and those individuals that need it most. And one of the things that YWCA is aware of is that we have a significant amount of survivors of domestic violence and their families that come to us every year who are fleeing domestic violence. And one of the hardest things is that we know that when folks are staying in our new shelter, sometimes it is nicer than where they will transition to. Shelter is very short term, so we're talking somewhere between 30 to 90 days. Sure. And so then they have to go back out in the communities. And what the YWCA sees is that there is a huge need for safe and affordable housing. And I think across all of Ohio, something like for every 100 families that needs to find housing, there are 40 units available. And I think in Butler County, that number is even smaller than that, something like 35 available units. And so we want to make sure that individuals who are fleeing domestic violence will have the ability to have safe and affordable and long-term housing. So we are working diligently to see if we can build and secure secure land and find an appropriate area and space to provide a building that will house 40 to 45 families in a permanent and supportive housing, so that they do not have to consider, oh, I can go here and this will be transitional after leaving shelter, or I can stay here for a year or 2 years, but that they will have a permanent place that families can live and grow. We know that ACE scores, or adverse childhood experiences, of young adults who have been experiencing significant violence and trauma impacts them, and it can impact them for a long time. And at YWCA, we believe that if we can build a permanent and supportive housing facility to house families, that we can have we can impact the trajectory of many more individuals. And so that is definitely a goal of ours.
That's good. Well, growing up in Hamilton, staying here, going to school, being able to stay in and make a difference in your own hometown, I'm sure there's a lot of pride there for you as you look back on your travels to where you are today.
I would absolutely agree. I went to high school with a lot of friends, and I had four very close girlfriends at the time when I was growing up, and all three of them left and are Chicago and California and Dayton, other areas, and it's great, and I'm excited. But I am glad in some ways that I was able to stay here and make a difference. My family lives here, my parents, my grandparents. We do. I have a significant, I have a vested interest. I have real passion and contributing into making the community that I grew up in a better place. And it looks a little different than when I grew up. So I'm excited about that. I think that, I am passionate about what I do here in Hamilton, and it doesn't land on me flat that, there is the potential for me to grow up and my children see somewhat of, oh, my mom went to high school here, she grew up here, there's a legacy. But also that there is so one day, I live here, I work here, I do whatever. Me and my friends, we were out running and we ran past Pyramid Hill is what it's called. Okay, so we didn't run past Pyramid Hill. We ran past Markham Park, but Pyramid Hill, the city of sculpture, I think is what we reference Hamilton to as the time. So Pyramid Hill had commissioned, and they brought these big pieces of stone to Hamilton, and they were having them made, and so there was one piece of stone here and another piece of stone there. But I just happened to be running in the park with my girlfriends, and sometimes when we run, we stop and we're nosy and we try to figure out what's going on. And so they had these big, huge pieces of stone, and so I stop and I'm talking to them about it, and they're like, oh yes, we've been commissioned by Pyramid Hill, and we're doing the city of sculpture and blah, blah, blah. And they're talking to me, and they're like, oh my goodness, by the way, it's you. And that's what one of the artists says to another artist, and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. I'm sweaty and stinky in my shirts, but they're like, it's you. And they're like, we think that this sculpture should be you, and so we'd like to take a picture of you and finish our sculpture off as you. And I was like, okay, fine, sure. So then they're taking all these photos of me, and they're taking my face and they're taking my side and all of this stuff. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's great. Thank you guys, whatever. And so then as they are getting ready to leave, they are doing two sculptures. The lady shares that, oh, and by the way, our other sculpture is of a little boy, and I'd like for you to see him. And I don't know them, and they don't know me, nor do they know that I work at a shelter that houses individuals who are fleeing domestic violence. But when she showed me the picture of the little boy, it was a little boy that was in my shelter in that very moment. Like, I am working in the shelter, I am the director, and he is staying in my shelter fleeing domestic violence, and that was the other person. So I just thought, oh my goodness, this is I don't know. I couldn't make it up. Like, she said, I'm doing him on one of the sculptures and we're doing you on the other sculpture. And so now there is a sculpture modeled after a survivor of domestic violence that was in the shelter at the time that I was the director. And then I am the model for the other sculpture in Hamilton. And it's just very interesting.
And interesting, and it was meant to be. Wow.
Yes, it was.
Oh, that's special.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're still making a difference. So this has been Dawn Anderson Thurmond, Chief Operating Officer, YWCA Hamilton. Dawn, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's been great to meet you and have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Java with Joe has been brought to you by Kemba Credit Union, sponsored in part by First Choice Coffee and Real Vision. Thanks for listening.